You live in the shadow, a pale, indistinct figure in your own drama, a mere passive spectator of the unexplored grandeur that, by inalienable right, should be entirely yours. Do you feel the paralyzing cold of hesitation? A corrosive ice that runs through your veins, solidifying your resolve to the deepest bones. Every time the opportunity for ascent presents itself in its purest, most promising and challenging form, do you systematically choose the sterile security of anonymity, the comfortable mediocrity that traps you, instead of embracing the calculated, yet inevitable risk of glory and dominion that await only the audacious, the fearless? Does your existence amount to an endless, pathetic series of automatic reactions, a mirror distorted echo, a forced counterpoint to the capricious designs and wills of others? Never ever. The main melody, dictating the sovereign rhythm of the universe around you, the central axis of your own cosmos. You are the eternal supporting actor in your own story, a silent ghost and observing shadow, waiting for an illusory permission that, in the honest and brutal core of your being, you know with chilling certainty will never come, while life's main stage, the effervescent epicenter of great achievements, epic transformations and absolute power, is taken day after day, with frightening veracity by those few chosen who dare, who launch themselves impetuously, who claim what is theirs without hesitation. The truth, brutal in its undeniable and unbearable rawness for the faint-hearted, is that you are the very architect, the relentless chief engineer of your invisible prison, an insurmountable mental structure, built brick by brick with the fetid mortars of intrinsic cowardice, voluntary submission, and most insidious and treacherous of all, the incessant, desperate, and pathetic need for external validation, for a superficial pat on the back that will never fill the abyssal void and ravenous hunger residing at your core. You do not exist as a sovereign of yourself, as an incontestable monarch of your own destiny. You merely survive miserably, crawling on the margins, on the gray peripheries of life, begging for a minimal space that by inalienable right should be yours, a right conquered by the sheer, irrefutable force of your existence and your potential. This is the unquestionable reality, the sharp, unretouched photograph of one who, by conscious and deliberate choice, or by a morbid and paralyzing inertia, abdicates their own power, handing over the reins of their existence, their soul, their future to any fickle wind that blows, to any voice that asserts itself with greater vehemence. This corrosive complacency is not a choice. It is your tightest handcuff, your silent and merciless executioner. And the acceptance of this mediocre fate is your own tomb, the epitaph of your cowardice. If this harsh reality, this unbearable truth resonates with every fiber of your being, with every beat of your still imprisoned heart, if you recognize these insidious patterns, corroding the vitality of your life, slowly and agonizingly, transforming it into a grotesque caricature of what it could be at its peak, or if you, with a bitter and inescapable pang of recognition, know someone who lives chained to this dark, subservient, and constantly humiliating existence, tem primera de mañana, with the force of a decree that you act now, this very instant, without hesitation, like this video, with the overwhelming force of your repressed indignation and the burning fury of your discovery, like a silent and unbreakable oath that the era of submission, of passivity has come to its absolute and irreversible end. Subscribe to the channel to begin your internal transformation, to align yourself with the naked and raw truth that few dare to utter, and even fewer dare to live, and most importantly, with the latent courage you barely know you possess, with an unflinching resolve. Comment below without fear of others' judgment. This happens to me, or tell us about someone you know who does exactly this, who wallows in the mediocrity of almost, who consciously abdicates their personal kingdom, because recognizing the problem, facing your own internal decay, without sugary euphemisms or self-deception, is the first, the most crucial, the most painful, and paradoxically, the most liberating and powerful step to fiercely dismember it, to dismantle its deep roots that imprison you, and finally to destroy it definitively and immovably, paving the way for your rebirth. Your weakness, that Achilles heel that keeps you glued to the ground immobilized, is not an unchangeable divine sentence carved in stone. not an intrinsic genetic flaw in your deepest essence, or a predetermined fate eat his rider. A habit deeply ingrained in your very bones, a meticulously cultivated mental programming over years of toxic social conditioning, a conditioned reflex that inexorably pulls you down, with every genuine attempt at ascent, with every authentic impulse to manifest your true potential. You have been systematically trained, shaped and indoctrinated since childhood, not to wield the crown of authority over your own life, to be the king of your destiny, but to serve it, to blindly obey external orders, to bow down before any imposed authority figure or social expectation. Like a trained dog, your mind, an internal battlefield where self-deception flourishes luxuriantly like a weed, convincing you with whispered lies that superficial kindness, passivity disguised as virtue, is synonymous with an operational weakness that in the end will devour you alive, turning you into ruins. That the cowardly escape from confrontation, the systematic avoidance of discord, is the ultimate expression of peace, of harmony lies. Pure, devilish and insidious lies that bind you with invisible, but iron chains to a life of passive resignation, of lost opportunities, of unfulfilled potential. You harbor in your inner sanctuary an inner servant, a cowardly crawling, parasitic voice that continually whispers to you to retreat, not to dare to shine with your own light, not to stand out amidst the amorphous and shapeless mass, to, at any psychological cost, not to offend the dying sensibility of others, mediocrity not to disturb the status quo of collective weakness. This psychological parasite, this mental worm deeply embedded in your psyche, ravenously feeds on your chronic inaction, your suicidal complacency. Your eternal and futile waiting for an external miracle that will never come, for salvation resides only within you. It is the insurmountable barrier, the silent and relentless guardian, that prevents you from taking the throne that is yours by birthright, by relentless vocation, by a vast and still unexplored potential. Identify it with the lethal precision of an experienced hunter. Confront it with the chilling coldness of an executioner, and without the slightest hint of pity or remorse. Destroy Italiano, crush it before it crushes you. Pulverizing your will and your dreams, your freedom, your ascent. Your very life existentially depend on this. Pause for a moment, not out of complacency, not out of a false sense of security, but with the desperate urgency of one facing a mortal enemy. An invisible predator. Stare at your reflection in the mirror, not with empty self-pity, with lamentations and excuses, but with a sharp, relentless coldness of an external observer, of a merciless judge who accepts no subterfuge, who in sound mind and with total honesty. Do you see there on the mirrored surface, responding to your penetrating gaze, a distorted and blurred reflection of what dying society, with its inverted values and suffocating expectations, expects of you, an obedient puppet molded to please, to conform and to be easily controlled, or a hungry predator with eagle eyes that see beyond the obvious, sharp teeth to bite into reality and extract what is due, ready to conquer, to claim what is yours by primal instinct and unwavering force of will? If the honest answer, the one that echoes undisguised in your core, is not the second option, if you do not see a conqueror, then you are still chained, dragging the rusty, heavy chains of your old self, a walking corpse of unfulfilled potential, an aborted future one who obsessively worries about the opinion of every insignificant path, about every whispered disapproval, who walks on metaphorical eggshells, with puerile fear of not arousing the slightest discontent in anyone, is not a leader. They are a slave to 1,000 invisible masters, a pathetic puppet whose strings are ceaselessly pulled by every whisper of disapproval, by every sideways glance, by every veiled criticism. You have allowed yourself, through chronic negligence or abject cowardice, to become easy and visible prey in life's brutal game, without concessions or second chances. And the world, relentless in its wild nature, indifferent to your pain, will make good use of this glaring vulnerability, exploiting it to the last drop of your vital energy, your essence, your very life. Your blood, the time has come. the time of steel and purifying fire. To completely incinerate this pathetic identity, this empty and lifeless shell, this persona of subservience that you erroneously and arrogantly call self. There is no honor whatsoever, absolutely none, and under no circumstances in being the willing lamb. Easy sacrifice amidst a flock of hungry, cunning wolves with no trace of pity or morality. There is and always will be only the cruel and inevitable reality of fresh meat for the slaughter, a tragic, humiliating, and unavoidable fate for all those who refuse, out of laziness, fear, or inertia, to become hunters, to take their rightful place at the top of the food chain of existence, to command instead of being commanded. Niccolò Machiavelli, the unquestionable master, the cold and calculating architect of real power, politics, and unrestricted domination, was not concerned in his surgical and relentless analyses with the sugary fantasies of ethics, or with the abstract moral illusions. It so blind the weak and the naive. His sharp and relentless mind focused on brutal efficacy, on the precise engineering of domination and unrestrained control. He understood with a clarity that pierced through the fog of self, deception, and good feelings, that the real world, the eternal battlefield of human ambitions, the incessant pursuit of resources, influence, and dominion, does not bend to your pious feelings, nor to your noblest intentions, or your purest and most idealistic desires. It invariably bends only to your unwavering will, to your ability to act with cold, strategic and calculating purpose, and to your relentless determination to achieve your objectives, whatever the cost, without hesitation or remorse. The prince, as he so masterfully described in his timeless works, in the immortal pages of The Prince, does not need to be loved. You must be above all feared, respected with a reverent dread that paralyzes any attempt at insubordination or betrayal. And it is in fear and respect, compelled by manifest force and strategic intelligence, not in fleeting and transient love that vanishes like smoke in the wind, that the indestructible foundation of true power, of control, lasting influence, and sovereign governance over men and events resides. This is the solid bedrock upon which empires are built, maintained and expanded through the ages. Your movements, each and every one, must be calculated with the lethal precision of a sharpshooter who does not miss the target. Every step you take, every word you utter, must be a meticulously planned move on the complex and dangerous chessboard of power. Your mind, an impenetrable vault forged in tempered steel, and guarding valuable secrets, must never, ever reveal more than what is strictly necessary for your ultimate purposes. Keeping adversaries in the dark, to speak less, therefore, does not just mean to reveal less of your secret intentions, your hidden vulnerabilities, or your long-term plans, but, and this is a crucial point of mastery, it means to observe more, to absorb more raw information from the environment, to analyze adversaries and the battlefield with frightening acuity, like a hawk surveying the landscape in search of its prey, detecting every subtle movement, every weakness. Allow others to happily drown in their own incessant noise, in their unnecessary confessions, in their reckless exposures that reveal, without them realizing, their deepest weaknesses and ambitions. Your stillness, the strategic and potent silence you project, must be the menacing and calculating quiet of the predator stalking its prey in the dense jungle, awaiting the perfect moment, the exact instant for the fatal pounce, not the cowardly passivity of the prey, desperately hiding and uncontrollably trembling in fear. Silence, when used with deliberate, strategic mastery, is not an absence of voice. It is an instrument of silent intimidation, a sharp sword that cuts through the empty arrogance and foolish complacency of those who presume too much about your ignorance or inherent weakness. Create around yourself a palpable air of mystery, an aura of unpredictability that deeply destabilizes and disturbs your opponents, keeping them in a constant state of alert and corrosive doubt. Your presence should not be an obvious and predictable response to others. It should be instead a constant interrogation, a disturbing enigma to be deciphered, an intellectual and emotional challenge. This is the unwavering foundation of lasting prestige and magnetic influence that transcends time. You have been indoctrinated since birth to fear rejection, to view it as the incontestable endpoint of all your highest aspirations, as a public and humiliating testament to your inherent inadequacy, your lack of worth, a dangerous lie, a noxious illusion that paralyzes you on your own path to greatness. Rejection is not, has never been, and never will be an insurmountable wall, blocking your progress or defining your value. It is in fact a springboard forged in steel and resilience. An elevated platform to the next, dizzying level of your personal and strategic. A chance to refine your art. Each no received. Every door that closes loudly and seemingly in your face is not a definitive setback, not a humiliating defeat, but a valuable lesson. A necessary calibration to refine your methods. Your approaches, a ruthless refinement of your strategies and of your very soul. Hugh despises you today. Hugh underestimates your intrinsic capacity. Who openly laughs at your most audacious ambitions, can and will be forced to revere you tomorrow when you rise, unshakable and majestic from the ashes of past failures. Stronger than ever, the true strategist, the master of the power game, uses every blow, every disdain, every apparent obstacle not as an impediment to their advance, but as an incandescent forge to strengthen their armor, to sharpen their weapons to the keenest razor's edge. Allow the sharp and biting pain of rejection to become the incandescent forge that shapes your resilience, your unbreakable determination to reach the highest peak, to conquer what is yours. You do not seek the ephemeral and volatile approval of ignorant musts. You seek absolute dominion over your own destiny and over all circumstances surrounding you. Rejection, in its purest and most emotionless essence, is merely information. Raw and impersonal feedback. Data to be processed, use it. Transform it for your deepest benefit. Make it work tirelessly for you, and it will become your greatest ally in the relentless pursuit of power, influence, and supremacy your emotions. If not rigorously tamed, trained and put at the service of your unwavering will, are your most dangerous internal enemies. Silence. Abator is operating in the darkest depths undermining of your foundation at every instant. Uncontrolled anger makes you reckless. An irrational beast acting on primitive instinct, revealing your weaknesses and vulnerabilities for all to see. Fear in its purest and uncontrollable form completely paralyzes you, transforming you into a statue of cowardice and inaction, incapable of any movement. Excessive joy, unbridled euphoria displayed to the world, makes you terribly vulnerable, revealing your lowered guard and your weak points to your cleverest enemies. The man or woman of true power, the individual who commands respect and produces tangible results, does not display their passions to the world as a theatrical spectacle. They use them as sharp tools, as strategic levers to manipulate complex situations, as valuable bargaining chips in silent and decisive negotiations. Maintain your facade, your carefully constructed and rehearsed social mask impenetrable, a monolith of chilling and unbreakable calm. Like a serene lake concealing mysterious depths, do not react impulsively to external stimuli. Like a cornered animal throwing itself against the bars, instead act with deliberate intention, with clear purpose and calculating coldness. Your decisions, all of them, must be made with the surgical coldness of a master strategist, with the relentless logic of a predator who calculates every step and every consequence. Never with the impetuous and amateurish heat of an inexperienced novice is alley manipulated he who masters his own emotions, who handles them with skill and mastery, masters himself incontestably and totally, becoming an unstoppable force. And he who masters himself, who is the absolute lord of his own psychic territory, will inevitably master everything around him, both people and circumstances, molding reality in his image. This is the fundamental and non-negotiable bedrock of a true, personal empire of lasting legacy and of full autonomy. How to implement these brutal truths, these relentless and timeless laws, on the eternal battlefield of your daily life. Start from the foundation, from your body, your temple of power, your armor forged for the war of existence. Correct your posture with the innate haughtiness and sovereignty of a monarch who does not ask but demands respect. Straighten your spinal column, the central axis of your being which radiates confidence, unwavering determination, and an aura of uncontestable authority. Look people in the eyes not with blind childish aggression, but with a penetrating intensity, an eagle's gaze that does not ask for permission but inspires immediate respect and attention, that does not beg for recognition but seizes it by the sheer force and presence of your will. Your voice, it must be deep, firm, resonant, filling the space around you without the slightest trace of hesitation, trembling or paralyzing self-doubt. Every word that emerges from your lips must sound like a decree, like a veiled order, that inexorably manifests in the reality around you. Every silence you strategically insert into your speech is not empty. It is a tacit sentence, a space of power that forces the other to fill the vacuum, to reveal themselves, to expose themselves. Control your breathing, the tumultuous beat of your heart, even under the most intense pressure, like a samurai controls his chi, before giving in to the destructive impulse to react impulsively, to blindly rush into a purposeless action. Pause. Let the emotion rise and watch it descend like a wave hitting the shore and receding. Powerless before your unshakable rock of control. You are the unwavering lighthouse, the rock that stands unharmed against the fiercest emotional storm, a pillar of strength when rejection, an inevitable and recurring event on the path to greatness, strikes you. Do not shrink back. Do not lament in despair. Do not victimize yourself mentally. Thank it for the precious information granted to you. Analyze the setback with surgical detachment. Learn what needs to be learned with coldness. Adjust your sails and return to battle stronger, more calibrated, more lethal in your approach. Do not seek petty, childish, and destructive revenge that corrodes the soul and converts your purpose, but uncontestable supremacy. The victory that annihilates any shadow of doubt about your capability. The best, most humiliating, and most devastating revenge is your overwhelming success. A brilliance so intense, so dazzling and undeniable, that it completely eclipses your detractors, transforming their initial disdain into forced admiration, into a respect they cannot deny but are compelled to grant. See every social interaction, every business meeting, every casual conversation as a complex and intricate game of chess, where every move, every word, every gesture counts and has a consequence. Where is the hidden power in this dynamic? How can you subtly yet decisively tip the scales in your favor, without others perceiving your cunning manipulation? Not to exploit the vulnerable, not to crush the weak for a sadistic and empty pleasure, but to protect your sacred territory, to expand your legitimate dominion, to build your personal empire with iron pillars and an unbreakable, indestructible will. Start with small daily acts of audacious defiance to your comfort zone, or as I call it, your zone of mental, emotional and existential stagnation. The graveyard of dreams. Speak with crystal clarity and unquestionable authority. When the inner voice of fear, that crawling and servile voice, tells you to shut up, negotiate with cunning, firmness, and a healthy dose of strategic ruthlessness. When the inner servant begs you to passively accept what is imposed, what is mediocre demand, with the unwavering conviction of a king who knows his divine right. When the weak in you only wants to beg for crumbs, for scraps patiently and with great deliberate intention. Build your personal gravity, an irresistible magnetism that attracts genuine respect, the loyalty of the strong, and repels with invisible but potent force mediocrity. Insignificanza. Futility. Become the undeniable center of your own universe, the sun around which everything orbits, the guiding star of your own destiny. This is not a gentle invitation to a pleasant journey, or a path paved with flowers for the faint-hearted, for those who crave easy and painless shortcuts, for those who seek conformity. It is rather a Herculean journey, a path of purifying fire forged in personal hell, a painful yet glorious road destined for royalty. For true sovereigns, for those few chosen who dare to claim their divine right to power, to full autonomy and to absolute mastery, by incinerating the inner servant, by dismantling this millennial programming of subs, this toxic legacy of mental slavery that imprisoned you. You do not corrupt your essence. You do not become a worse person, devoid of humanity or true empathy. On the contrary, you emerge from the ashes of your old self as the most potent, most authentic, most fearsome, and paradoxically most human version of yourself. Free from the shackles of fear, of others' expectations, of the chains of opinion, you transform completely and irrevocably into the supreme architect of your own reality, the unquestionable master of your destiny, the general who not only plans, but dictates the battles of your life with strategic vision, winning them even before they begin to be fought. Your shoulders will now be broad and powerful, capable of carrying the weight of a kingdom of an unshakable legacy. Your gaze penetrating and unwavering will make others avert theirs, recognizing the silent yet potent authority you naturally project. Your voice, authoritative and resonant, will be heard in any hall on any battlefield, and will be obeyed not by brutal imposition, but by an intrinsic gravity, a magnetic force that commands respect. You will no longer seek permission to exist, to act to be who you were born to be. You will grant it to others as a sovereign, benevolent in your strength, yet firm in your will. You will no longer react impulsively to world events. You will dictate them. You will mold them to your will. Like a sculptor who transforms raw stone into a timeless masterpiece, your presence in itself will be a force of nature, an unstoppable storm that moves with purpose and unbreakable determination. Your mind an impregnable fortress, capable of strategizing in the most complex and adverse fields, of predicting moves and counter-moves, of anticipating the future. You will be the prince, the relentless strategist, the supreme predator who commands his own kingdom, who carves his own legend with the iron of will, with the blood of battle and with the sweat of conquest. No longer an insignificant pawn on others' chessboard, a mere extra in someone else's drama, but the chessboard itself, the entire game, the supreme master of movements, the regent of your own empire. This is your only chance, your summons to ascend, to destroy the invisible chains that have held you captive for so long in a mediocre existence, and to forge with sweat, with iron, with pain, and with glory, a new identity, a new era for yourself, for your legacy, an identity of unquestionable power, of control absolute over your universe, internal and external, of a destiny that you and only you dictate. What is your real choice at this exact moment in your life? At this existential watershed, to continue vegetating in the dark and cold shadow of what could have been a distant and pathetic echo of colossal potential, never achieved a silent lament in the ether of oblivion, or to take the reins of your destiny with the untamed ferocity of a predator at the peak of its strength, with the courage of a conqueror who accepts nothing less than absolute victory and total dominion. Power in its rawest, most transformative and most absolute form waits for you inert, just awaiting your command, your decision firm and unwavering. Your battle cry, the final decision is yours and yours alone. A burden only you can carry, a choice only you can make, a responsibility that cannot be delegated, the path to supremacy, to full self-sufficiency. An unquestionable mastery is paved in blood and sweat, in glory and pain, and awaits your firm, decisive and relentless steps. May your choice be worthy of the king you are destined to be, of the predator you are in your essence.